All right, so now it's time to introduce file fields as well as image fields. So with our products, we want them to be seen, right? We want it to be a visual thing. So in order for us to do that, we're going to have to create a way for us to actually upload images or files to this particular product. So if we jump into our models.py here, we're going to actually introduce the file field first, and then we'll do the image field. So file field is this one right here. It's a standard field, but we'll just say image equals to models.fileField. And we also have to designate where we're going to upload it. So I'll just say upload to, and no slash up front, and then we'll just say products with a trailing slash. If you put a slash up front, it causes some issues. Okay, so where does it actually upload? That will be the question that you may have. If you remember back in settings when we set up our static files, we set up all this stuff, and we also set up media root. It uploads to media root. That's where it goes. Very simple. Okay, so we've created this. Let's go ahead and do what now, since we've saved our models.py. We do python manage.py, make migrations, and it's saying provide a one-off default. This is something we haven't talked about, or at least this portion. We kind of did, but let's say null equals to true and blank equals to true. So null means in the database, this can be a empty value, and blank means that it's not required in Django. So putting these things together means that Django's not going to like on the admin, Django won't get mad, and also on the backend it won't get mad, or at least the database won't get mad with null. So we did make migrations. Let's go ahead and migrate it. Python manage.py, migrate, and I'll go ahead and run the server again, and we'll just jump into our admin. So go to admin, into products, click on any given one. Notice how it's gray. It's not bold and black like the other ones. If I change this to being false, it changes. I'm not going to do that. I would have to run migrations if I was going to leave it that way, but I wanted to allow it to be empty completely. So I can actually upload an image here. So let's go ahead and upload an image. I'm just going to take a quick screenshot, and I'll go ahead and choose that image from that screenshot. And I'll go ahead and hit save and continue editing. There is the image. That's the file itself. If I open it up in a new tab, there it is. It's actually showing up, and it says media, products, and so on. Now, of course, media and products have to do with this. So the media URL is that, and then products has to do with that. And then after that is the file name. So we can actually adjust that even further and say define upload image path, something like that, and we'd say instance and file name. So instance, if we print it out, we'll see what those two things are, or you could kind of get a better understanding of that. And then we're going to return, well, this with this upload path, we actually can use the file name in it. So we can actually change the file name, which is something that's kind of cool. So what I'm going to do is really just change the file name and use a random integer for that file name. So that will change the actual file name for it. And I'm just going to go ahead and import random. And then we'll just say new file name equals to random.randint between, let's say 0. Well, let's do 1 and, some weird odd number. Okay, so that will give us a random integer. And then what we want to do is parse the file name. Like we want to get the extension from the file name. So if it's a PNG, we want to get .png. If it's JPEG, we get that. Fairly straightforward way to do it. We import OS, and I'll even make a little method for it called get file name extension, or ext. And we just give the file in here, or the file path. Basically, it's actually the file itself, so it's going to be this. So let's just call it file name. And we'll say the base name equals to os path dot base name of the file path, file name, and we'll say name ext equals to ospath dot split text of the file name, and then we'll just return name and ext. So this first part is if you passed in a whole path, so it's kind of reusable. That is, we will just call this file path here instead, actually, and then base name. Okay. So that means that if I gave it like actually where it was located. So in the case of that last image, if I actually fed in this entire path, it would work as well as just feeding in the name itself. So just a little bit more of an effective way to get the file name and the extension. So from here, we'll go ahead and get that. We'll say name and ext equals to get file name extension of that file name that's being passed, right? And that gives us a new file name and a new file name extension. So that means that we can say final file name equals to, and we'll just use some formatting here, and we'll just give it new file name and the ext. So I'll do format, new file name equals to new file name, and ext equals to ext. So of course these are what's being substituted and all that. If you're using Python version 3.6, you can actually do something like that. That's why we have that. Okay, so there we go. We now have our new file name. So we just need our path, which we're just going to return products. And then we'll also put in the file name here. So I'll say new file name because it's a random integer. And then finally the final file name. And again, formatting that, new file name equals to new file name, and file name, final file name equals to final file name. Okay, so this gives us a more robust way of naming these files. Now you might think this is on the more advanced side, but it's actually kind of important just so you make sure that when you upload things, there are no issues with the upload itself. So if you look at this name right here, this has underscores and dashes and stuff like that. So it's actually ready for being a URL. But if it had some spaces and stuff like that in it, you might run into some issues actually calling it. And that's what happens with users. So what we wanted to do is just change the name of the file right off the bat, and we will just reference that file name. Now you could name it off of the title, you could do it off of some other stuff, but we just did it off of a random integer just to make sure that it works. That's kind of the main thing. So now that we've got that, we can just change this here. We'll save that and we'll refresh in here. We're going to re-upload that same screenshot and I'll hit save and continue. And what do you know? We've got a new path and a new sort of file name in there as well. So if we actually jump in to our project, or well, we could do it in here, static CDN, products, and there's that image. So it's not really checking if that image exists, which of course there's a way to do that. That's just getting a little bit more advanced, but we now have it in here where it's fairly robust. So the next thing here is, well, I've been uploading images in this file field, but what if I upload something different? So let's go ahead and just jump into our project and upload a Python file, right? So, or any file for that matter. Let's upload the Sublime project file. I'll hit save and continue. It saves it as a Sublime project file. That's not what we want. We want it to be an actual image file. So going back, let's just change it back to being an image. I'll hit save and continue. And to change it to being only a file, we change this to ImageField. I'm going to go ahead and save it. And right away, I get errors about Pillow. So all you have to do is pip install Pillow, and that will install the Python image library on your system. So it's just another requirement that you have to have. And now that I've done that, I can run the migrations because I've saved my models too. So Python manage.py, make migrations, and then Python manage.py, migrate. and we go back in and run the server. We look in here, and now if I try to upload anything but a an image, so let's try Sublime project, I'll hit save and continue. It's now saying it's not a valid image, right? That is the validation that's actually happening for an image. That's what the ImageField does. And it needs that Python image library to actually open that file and ensure that it is an image. And it does it in a safe way, which is great. So the next thing is actually rendering out these images. So if we go back into products, we go into any of our product. We want to see the image for it, right? So I put this one in hat, so that's ID of 3. Let's go ahead and actually create the image itself. So inside of here, we can call object.image and save it. And it actually gives us somewhat of the correct path, but it's not the correct path. This does not include the actual place of where it is. So if I copy this and paste it up here, it says not found. That's because we need to do .url. This gives us the actual path to where it is, refresh, and there you go. It's showing us where that image actually is. So I can do something more like img src equals to that image, and we can add a class like img fluid for later. This is a bootstrap class that we'll handle later, but now if I refresh it here, notice this is the image. It does kind of look like we're in the admin right now, but we're not. That is actually the image. So let's change it to being a hat, right? So I'll just search hat, and we'll go into images, and I will grab this black hat. We will view image. I'm going to go ahead and save this first on to my desktop, and then I'll go into my product, grab it, and then I will go back to that desktop, grab that image, open it up, hit save. Very good. Now the desktop one, both things on the desktop I can delete. I don't need those anymore because they're just reference, right? So back into our product, we refresh in here, and now hat, this is my hat. Kind of looks like my hat, actually. Like, realistically, it does. I'm not even kidding. Okay, so now we've got that all set up. We have ImageField FileField. Something else to note about FileField is, yeah, you can actually upload and share files here. So if there's a PDF that was related to this product, put it in that FileField and use it much like we have inside of our detail. Before we go, you advanced users who are really ready to just take a dive into large file uploads. This is not really for large file uploads. This is for smaller ones. Like if you put a 100 megabyte item here, it's going to take a long time and it's not really that user friendly. So we actually have a guide for this very thing, large file uploads. Again, this is more advanced, but it's for you, those of you who want to have these, kind of things. You want to upload larger images or videos or whatever, as long as it's related to that product. Check out that guide. That is where it's at. All right, well, let's keep going.